Welcome to the latest Hedera virtual meetup. I am very excited to be joined by Ryan and Austin. Some of you guys might know them from maintaining Hedera's open source repositories or building some cool things like Kabuto. But there are a bunch of cool things that they're building that I'm really excited that they're here to talk about today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Cooper Coons. I am the developer evangelist at Hedera Hashgraph. And I'm very, very excited for our guests to show off this cool trading platform that they built. Ryan and Austin, would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Ryan Leckie. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Launchbadge. And as Cooper said, Launchbadge has done a lot of things with Hedera over the last year or more now. We've worked on the SDKs, Kabuto, my H4 wallet, the Ledger wallet, etc. Bunch of stuff going on. It's been a lot of fun.
And I'm Austin Bonander. I'm the lead software engineer here at Launchbadge. I'm mainly the primary product owner for the Java SDK, and I've made major contributions to the JavaScript SDK as well, and one of the principal developers of Kabuto alongside Ryan and a couple of our other team members.
You've had a lot of the experiments lately working with Corda and bringing HCS to Corda as well.
Bringing HCS to Corda, working on other wallet integrations as well.
Yeah.
So
that's really awesome, guys. I think that you guys have such a broad wealth of experience in Hedera, like the actual SDKs themselves, my HBAR wallet, mirror node infrastructure, obviously Hedera experts. Would you maybe say something about what you did before Hedera? What kind of is your background, or how'd you get to this cool place that you guys are at today?
Huh. Okay.
I stumped them already.
Oh, yeah, I personally just like new technology and working in new technology in new areas, right? I like working with things that are definitely on the bleeding edge. I can kind of irritate some of the guys here when I upgrade our stack far too fast. When I go home and it's broken, it's okay. But
so you're always looking to be on the bleeding edge.
Yeah, Hedera was really exciting because it was significantly faster than what it was there at the time, and even still today. So it was very fun to be like, hey, we can try and work on this together, try and make this work, because the speed aspect is really cool. But no, before that, we've done a lot of various things. We worked with some Aetherium projects. Several web applications, mobile applications, like you said, broad spectrum. Launchbadge is, Launchbadge.com had a lot of better answers for you than me. I can't really enumerate easily myself. It's been a lot of different things.
Well, this is why you're the CTO here. You have people like Austin who can manage the individual projects for you. What were you doing before Launchbadge, Austin? How long have you been there?
So I've been with Launchbadge. Yeah, it's coming up on a year pretty quick, I think in April. Before that, I did mostly just arbitrary full stack development. Started out freelancing Android app development. So I have a long history with Java and JVM technologies, but did not have much of a cryptography background before this position. So I was really excited to get to play with that with Hedera, talking about DSAs and stuff like that. And we've dealt with some encryption in the SDKs with exporting encrypted key stores and stuff like that to safely store private keys.
That's really awesome. I love, no one plans on getting into the blockchain industry. We all kind of end up here. And that's what I really love hearing, how everyone got here and how we're all part of the same community. So I understand that you guys are here today to show off a really, really cool trading platform. Would you guys like to start kicking that off?
Sure. Yeah. No. So what we've done is it's really just more of a prototype. I don't want to call it this up and coming platform.
True.
To be careful there. It's more of a prototype that we put together, and it's this exchange essentially. Is this client-side exchange, and there is a non-fungible token and a fungible token that users can trade between themselves. A user goes on the platform, can to hit, request trade. And we'll look at the app in a second. They can hit request trade and go, I want to trade these tokens with you, and et cetera. We chose to use emojis as a non-fungible token because it's, it's
I
fun.
love it.
It's hilarious. We got, there's a big list of them, so it's an easy set to fill. So you can trade emojis for essentially credits that we use for our fungible token. You can trade back and forth. Trades have to be accepted. Trades expire after a minute just to keep things moving.
That makes sense. So just to pause for a second, for anyone who doesn't know what an NFT is, would you guys like to talk a little bit about, like, at a bare level, how it's different from a fungible token and how it maps to emojis really well?
Austin, you want to take that?
So because emojis are individually identifiable, I believe what we do is when the user signs up, we generate a private key, public key pair. I think ED25519, the same as Hedera uses. And we run that through just a simple pseudo-random function to generate a small set of emojis. And we don't care that they're unique on the system right now, but it does give actually a really good distribution of emojis. Like, for example, we have yet to see the poop emoji. So when we post the link in a second here and you'll start playing with it, let us know if you get it, because I want it.
That's awesome. So the idea really is that there's a sense of scarcity out there with these emojis, and that each of these emojis are uniquely identifiable and therefore can be traded back and forth. So if someone out there, as you said, owns the poop emoji, the odds are, depending on however you guys establish the rules, is that no one else in the world would have this emoji. And so this is a really cool way where you can represent digital scarcity for uniquely identifiable objects. So very, very excited about this. And
actually, as our team here has been playing with it, they've generated pretty high demand for toilet paper. So, yeah.
That's great. Do you guys want to start showing the demo here? Is there any other background?
I can share my screen. We can dive more into it as we look at other places. But I can share my screen and we can look at the actual site here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
this is the website. We can share. If you see this link right here, feel free to go to it. It's a launchbadge-trading-post.web.app.
I will drop that link in the YouTube chat for those who are watching.
Yeah, sure. And anyway, you go there. It'll just ask for a name. It's just it doesn't really matter. It's just identifier. We don't do anything with that besides display it. And as you go in, as Austin mentioned, we assign you 10 different emojis based on, and we actually do it based on the consensus timestamp that when you go into the website, you hit login. Essentially, what we're doing is we're taking that public key and we're sending that to Hedera using the Hedera consensus service. And when that gets back, we go, okay, what's the timestamp? And we run that through an algorithm to pick out 10 emojis from an ever decreasing list of emojis.
Interesting. So you're kind of doing like a airdrop for emojis based off the first people to sign up.
Yeah.
So at some point there wouldn't be any more emojis to randomly give out, I guess.
That would be the idea if we ran this thing long enough.
Awesome.
Eventually, and we also just give you 10,000 credits. That doesn't ever run out. That's just a fixed number you get when you make an account at the moment. But obviously we can make it run out eventually too. That's not we could put that in here.
Yeah, that's awesome. This looks really, really cool.
So if we can go down here, we can look at people that have made trades. When a trade is made, it has about a minute left before it expires.
Oh, okay. So this is like your order book, really?
Yeah. It's like an order book going through here, and the people on the left requested to trade this with the people on the right. I can look at a successful trade and we can see, oh, this was traded for that.
Huh, that's super interesting.
I can hit trade right here and we can go, okay, what do I want to do here? I want to, I hit the refresh button, and as you can see, when you refresh it, it's loading from the Hedera consensus, a mirror node, Kabuto. it's pulling the data off of this topic, the state changes, and rebuilding its order history, its knowledge of the state.
Okay, that's interesting. So essentially, this whole trading application is built on one topic within the
Correct.
Hedera consensus service.
Correct.
And so if you refresh or revisit that page on the client, you can see it actually trying to pull in all of the trades that have happened in that topic historically from the Kabuto mirror node API.
Yes.
That's super interesting. And so could you actually maybe just walk through this first transaction? Like I see there's a bunch of emojis going on there. Are they trying to buy all of those at once?
No, so hold on. I hit trade, and you hit trade, it shows you a list of users. So select a user to trade with. And this is the emojis they have.
Oh, interesting. So those are the NFTs that public-private key pairing that you guys generated actually control.
Yeah, so I can find Cooper here. If that's actually you, Cooper, I don't know. But
I don't think that is me. It seems like someone either has my name. Oh no, that is me. I definitely signed up like 5 minutes ago.
Okay. So I can click on Cooper here, and I can go, okay, well.
Dang, I didn't get the poop emoji.
I'm going to trade him an ear for a foot. That sounds fun. And you hit the trade button. And then what that's doing is it's packaging that request and pushing that to Kabuto.
Super interesting.
And as you can see here in open trades, it now shows this here. I can look at it. I can't accept it. But Cooper could go into it, hit view, and then hit accept if he wants to do that.
Yeah, should I share my screen? Yep. Take it back from you?
Sure.
We'll see how this goes. I have never used their emoji trading demo platform before, but this is what my instance of it looks like. You can see that I am Cooper, and I have an open trade here, which looks like it's an ear for a foot. It looks like it's got a decent amount of time left before it expires.
You might want to hit accept pretty quickly if you're going to do that. It might run out. Yeah.
I tried. We'll see if it works.
Yeah. You got about a minute to accept it. We'll see.
Okay. No open trades. It worked?
Yeah. So you got the ear. If you look at the top right there, you have the ear now, and your foot's gone.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
And it still looks like everyone is looking for toilet paper. This is super, super cool. That actually might be the first time I have ever exchanged any type of assets on the Hedera consensus service, maybe even on Hedera natively as a distributed ledger. So that's super cool.
Yeah, this is kind of like a smart contract. It's just the smart contract is the compute side is 100% in the browser versus in an Ethereum VM or in a Solidity VM.
Each client computes state individually, and they just throw out invalid transactions. So you can send whatever junk to the topic you want. It doesn't matter.
Oh, that's super interesting. So basically the idea is if everyone has a client that is implemented to the same specification and is connected and synced up to this topic, then anyone, whether it's going to this URL or if I download it and run it on my local machine, would be able to basically trade on this type of platform. Is that kind of the idea?
Pretty much, yeah. And by controlling the access to the submit key for the topic, you could restrict the network to only trusted parties as well.
Okay, so if you were like a big business or a consortium who wanted to implement a private trading platform or something like that?
Yeah, this is very similar to what I'm working on with the Corda integration, but that's off topic.
No worries. I'm sure we can circle back to that at the end, as well as any of the other cool projects that you guys are working on. I do think that we might have glanced over how different this really is between doing something like NFTs on Ethereum or EOS or some of these other networks. Could you maybe talk about why you guys would use consensus service and this type of client computation model versus something like Ethereum or even Hedera's own smart contract service?
So one thing I think is really awesome, because when I talk about wanting to be on the bleeding edge and wanting to be as fast as possible, one of the really cool things about this model is the only data that's going to this distributed ledger is the absolute minimal amount of data, right? The entire state is never given to Hedera.
And so why is that a good thing?
The good thing there is this, it's similar to how Hedera itself works, in that as long as every well-behaving client can rebuild the exact same state using the globally ordered timestamps from Hedera, then it's the same thing, really. The state is still given to everyone. And it's just, when the state needs to change, then a signed message is given to Hedera and that gets propagated. But the entire state itself doesn't just keep getting re-pushed back and forth, essentially.
Huh, that's interesting. So the idea is basically, what is the minimal amount of information do we need to share across everyone?
Yeah, and then even if we were sharing more information, another advantage of not using a smart contract is the computation is 100% on the client. There's not an actual VM running where we were paying gas to run this computation like, for instance, in Hedera, because the nodes are all remote, in order to like query your balance on a smart contract, that does cost something, right? But if the computation is local, and you can't easily cache that state by just listening to the stream of HCS messages, that doesn't have to cost something for the client.
Huh, interesting. So it's almost a way where the idea with Ethereum smart contracts or Hedera smart contracts is, let's distribute this business logic to every computer around the world who wants it, and let's all have them process it kind of consecutively or at the same time, and then render this type of application. But in your guys' model, you actually are distributing the client software and saying, any of you that care about this, not necessarily everyone in the network, can therefore compute it. And that'll actually save not only you guys, but the whole network, everyone interested in this trading platform, a lot of costs.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting. I also know, sorry, what was that?
That's a good point. The fact that not everyone has to get this, right? Every node has to have every smart contract, but not every node has to have this copy of this application.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, do you want to talk a little bit about why you like Hedera Consensus Service as the kind of engine behind this platform?
I think for me, it's more that it's really nice that it's just, you can treat it as kind of a globally ordered FIFO queue, right? You have first in, first out. You put stuff in one end, you get it back out in the other end in a well-defined order that everyone can see. And that lets you build these kinds of distributed applications with very little shared state, because the source of truth is the stream of events. They're very strongly ordered, and you can calculate, you can prevent things like double spends just by looking at the sequence number and saying, okay, I definitely claimed, I claimed these NFTs in this by accepting this request before anyone else. So you can exclude double spends really easily that way.
Huh, that's super interesting. So in your guys' case, in this application, the way that you guys are reading that stream is through Kabuto, right? Like, it's your own mirror node that you guys build and maintain. And could you maybe talk a little bit about why Kabuto exists, how that fits into the picture, and where you see Kabuto kind of moving in these types of applications?
So
there's a lot there. I apologize.
No, yeah. So one of the things like that's with Kabuto is it's honestly just been kind of fun to work on something that's I guess high data. So it's
very high data.
Talk about like fun technology to work on, and one of the fun. I personally, I came from, when I originally started working on tech, I was an accountant and I was doing a lot of SQL and VBA programming in quotes, and so to me it's a lot of fun to deal with massive amounts of data, right? And so Kabuto itself as a mirror node dealing with hundreds of millions of rows is kind of fun. So that building that was just fun. It's fun to work on. And Kabuto, where it fits in right now, right, is it's providing a browser interface to Hedera Consensus Service.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that you guys didn't really touch on in this NFT demo. Do you maybe want to go back and show us where this is fitting into the Kabuto browser explorer?
Yeah, we can show you that easily. Yeah,
that would be great, because you know, I know that when you're pushing this message saying I want to send this emoji to this emoji, I know that a message is going out to Hedera, reaching consensus, going out to a mirror node, and then coming to this application.
Yes.
In this case, that mirror node that is kind of the bridge there is Kabuto. And you guys have this really nice browser UI where, you know, average people or developers alike can actually go see all the transactions that have ever happened, you know, where they fit into the topic and all those nice things. So what type of, you know, transaction is this?
So this is me looking at a specific topic, the topic that this is Trading Post application is tied to. And I'm looking at this topic and I'm seeing messages come in.
People are trading in real time.
Yeah, a message would be a trade request or trade acceptance. There's not a message for trade rejection because we just expire them after a minute.
That makes sense.
But if I click on one of these, you can see here's a JSON object for a trade request and a payload of the public key for both the requestee and the requestor, and then the emojis they're trading, and the amount of we call it gold in the JSON object, but the credits they're trading.
Yeah.
And then this object is signed by the requester, and then that's their signature.
Oh, okay, that's super interesting. So this is how you're kind of facilitating that agreement, even though they don't have to have Hedera accounts. You're actually encoding the signatures within the message bodies.
Yeah. So that touches on something else. Is we could have easily done a different model here, because this is more of an abstraction over Hedera.
Yeah, yeah.
The account that's paying for this, right, could be just the business paying for that if a business wanted to put a platform like this up, and the business would be paying for this through some other means, and that's behind the scenes. However, you could also do this where, like, let's say Composer from hashing systems, that could be a required tool that users would have to have in order to log into this trading platform, and then we could tie into the Hedera account.
Oh, interesting.
That's another way we could do this.
Yeah, that's a crazy amount of flexibility.
Yeah, like both ways will work fine. It's just this way made it so people can just, you know, try it on the call without having Hedera accounts.
That makes sense. So I will pause here. It seems like we have a queue of questions.
Oh, sure. We can take a look.
Austin, this one is for you. And I think you know the answer. Can you use a database to maintain state and then basically resync that with a consensus service topic later?
You know, in fact, because I'm seeing the same stream of questions, this kind of answers a later question asking about how like Hedera only guarantees 30 days of storage on their official mirror node. I forget what guarantees Kabuto wants to make. I don't know if Ryan wants to discuss that at this time, but that the earlier question kind of answered the later question, is that you would store rollups probably on a separate server, so that, for one, you don't have to fetch the entire history of the topic.
What do you mean by rollups there? You know, just snapshots?
You would actually have the state at a given sequence number, and then you just start from that sequence, or, well, consensus timestamp, because that's how the mirror API works, is by timestamp instead of sequence number. But anyway, so you could save a snapshot of the total network state at that point, and then you only have to roll up from there. And then you can persist that snapshot to some other ACID database, something with really strong replication. You could even store it as a file on Hedera if you wanted. So that would give you that kind of durability without having to go back to the entire history of the topic, which may or may not be available. And then you can follow the running hashes from the hash you stored with the snapshot all the way up to the latest message to be sure that, yes, this is the actual state of the network as everyone else sees it. And we were also thinking you could just ask other clients via another a separate message on the topic, hey, what's your current state? And then you take basically the consensus of that state as your source of truth.
That's super interesting. I think you hit on a big, topic that I would love to, asked about, but I'd love to talk about now is a lot of people assumed that to process this kind of like a blockchain, you'd have to go back entirely in time from the first message and process every transaction that has happened in that topic. It sounds like with these types of rollups and snapshots, you guys are, already thinking of ways to get around that. Could you talk a little bit more about technical decisions, trade-offs there?
It's mostly complexity of the implementation. This is just a prototype after all.
Yeah.
So for the initial prototype, we're just like, okay, whatever. We'll just start from the beginning. We have it. It's not going to be very long.
Yeah.
This isn't meant to be a long-lived application. If you were to deploy it in that role, yes, you would want roll-ups, so you don't have to go back a million something messages to get the entire state. And that's the problem with like Bitcoin. I don't know if Bitcoin stores snapshots now, but historically, if you were spinning up a new wallet, you would have to sync the entire history of the blockchain, which could take forever and take up hundreds of gigabytes of disk space. So you do want some sort of roll-up mechanism if you were to deploy this in production.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you mentioned like a way where you could have a topic with all your messages, and then you could have, either messages within that topic or another topic that is kind of keeping those running snapshots where you could say at this sequence number and this topic, this was the, hashed or signed state of that application network.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the model or what you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, either storing snapshots or asking other clients for their snapshots and kind of mussing out the truth from that.
That's interesting.
One of the two options.
Yeah, almost like an IPFS model where like I would go out and look for whoever else is running the latest version of this application network and can prove to me that this is the state of it.
Sure, and there's limitations to that. Like, if there's only one other person online on the network, you can't really get a consensus on that. They could lie, they could tell you whatever they wanted.
Yeah. And
you'd have no choice but to believe it, or you just wait until someone else comes online. So it could be also a combination of the two solutions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you touched on another, great thing. There's a lot of nuggets to kind of dig out here. In this kind of trading application, the ability for people to continue using it would be dependent on either you guys hosting this website or you guys making this source code and those types of things available to people. What other kind of like, I don't know how to phrase this necessarily, but what other kind of design decisions are there if you guys were thinking about, this is not just a demo, I actually wanted to build a type of trading platform like this. Like, in my mind, I would want to decentralize and have as many types of computers running that application network. And when I say application network, it's just the computers that are processing this HCS messages and, running this type of app. And I would want to distribute that as many clients as possible. And I would want to maybe even incentivize them to, through fees or some other type of mechanism to host this application network. There's a lot to unpack there, but what are some of like the main things that come to your mind when I talk about if you wanted to bring this to a more real environment?
Well, one of the things to talk about there is there's not really much you have to do with incentivizing. I mean, I think the easiest solution for something like this is to make the client open source. Mm-hmm. And then anyone can run whatever they want. And it's not so much you have to run this, because again, this isn't like a smart contract. If no one has a client open, it's still happening, right? The processing power doesn't actually there's no processing power on the network.
Yeah.
It's only when someone wants to get on the client and look at the data, that's when the processing power happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
right. So it's not really like, hey, I need to incentivize people to run it, otherwise the network dies. I could have one guy running it, and that's just his whatever network,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good to note that the application is running like in a browser environment and not on a server.
100% in a browser. There's no server at all behind this. I should say that there's this. It's hosting right now. The one that you're looking at is on Firebase.
Yep.
They own the web.app domain.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
yeah. And the
So
Firebase is technically hosted, everywhere. It's got a CD in like most parts of the world.
yeah, so the idea is either as long as you can access this browser or access the code that other people are running, or you can access, a hosted version from someone else, totally else that has access to the code, you would still be able to run this fully decentralized trading kind of platform.
Yeah,
Which
you could even you clone the repository and run the code yourself locally. There's not really any dependencies. Well, you would need the Hedera account to submit messages to the topic, of course. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you mentioned, I don't want to misquote you guys, that you might open source this demo down the road just for other people to play around with.
Yeah, we were definitely talking about that. I think right now the demo's, for lack of a better word, messy. We're gonna make it look a little nicer than push it up to GitHub.
We also wanted to clarify that we don't really intend this to be a building block for a production application.
No, please don't just take it and use it, but it is fun to play around with it and see it does. The patterns that it's using are real patterns that could be used to make an actual NFT trading platform, right? It's not like this is just a play pattern. It's a play application of a real pattern. That's how I would word that.
Yeah, you could almost call it like it's a sample or a template when you're supposed to build on it.
Yeah, I think we're, in the crypto space, you should be very careful about anything you're trying to run anywhere. But, I actually just pushed out a demo chat application to the Hedera GitHub. Very similarly, it's supposed to take people from like 0 to 5, not 0 to 100. It's supposed to be, get started, get familiar, and start building what you would take to production or whatever environment that you would like. So great caveat there. Really important to know to be careful with what you're doing.
Speaking of that, Cooper, why can't people chat on our Trading Post website yet?
Why can't people chat on it? Oh, I haven't implemented that. That would be super interesting. I'm actually probably waiting for Pablo to implement HCS into Composer for that. Or actually, that might have came out a week ago, but you need some type of browser-based signing for chat to work there.
Ooh, someone traded me for a foot. Here, you can have my foot.
Oh, that is a good deal. I see a lot of people in the chat are playing around with the website. I see a lot of trades going on, which is super, super cool to see in real time. I did have one other kind of question. And we talked about how you can validate or authenticate the messages or the state of an application network, right? Like if there's a bunch of computers out there all participating in this trading platform, what other ways could you actually ensure that? I would be curious how state proofs might fit into this picture and how you could use those to kind of validate or authenticate your application networks. Do you have any thoughts there? Austin, Ryan, maybe not. Just from my end, I think that you could use state proofs at a given transaction, a given timestamp, or a given running hash within a topic to actually kind of authenticate potentially the state of that network. State proofs aren't currently available, so it's
hard to speculate on state proofs.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get my mental model around and how it would translate as well.
Yeah, because I was sitting here and talk about it. Yeah, I was sitting here and I was like, state proofs. I mean, they'd be nice, but.
So why would just hypothetically saying because they're in Hedera's roadmap next 6 to 12 months, I believe state proofs should be coming available. Even if you don't know how they would work right now.
So I can definitely envision a use for them because we talked about rollups, right?
Yeah. If you could just talk about hypothetically how you would use.
Hypothetically, if I had a thing called a state proof that works the way I believe they're going to work, right? So I would imagine these rollups that we talked about. You could roll up a chunk of the network, and now Whereas before, these rollups, you're just trusting wherever you got the rollup from, or you're trusting that you got the rollup from a number of people. However, with these state proofs, you probably could say, okay, well, these 100 transactions, these so many transactions are all proven by this one state proof. So it's easier to go and fast forward that proof versus having to look at every single message.
Interesting. So instead
That's
of maybe
the way I understand they're going to work, but I don't fully know and don't want to quote me on how they're going to work.
Yeah, I appreciate your caution on not claiming to know without the insight. But just from from my perspective, how I understand it is instead of asking one specific computer or entity in that application network to do that type of a state validation up to a sequence number saying this is the state of that application network at this given time, you could actually use Hedera's mainnet state proofs to prove that same authenticity. Basically saying up until this point in time, we know that this sequence number and all these running hashes were valid, and you'd be able to take that kind of as your rollup. I might be overly optimistic or a little speculative there, but definitely a lot of ways that the way that you can architect these application networks has so many possibilities where it's like you're taking those kind of rollups from one person, you're taking a collective rollup from a bunch of different people. Maybe in the future, you're using Hedera's state proofs as the rollup. There's a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, I mean, even we talked about even for like this demo, which we didn't get a chance to do it because it was just a demo prototype, but we talked about like we could even just do a quick rollup in local storage on the browser to ease the load of hitting the refresh button. Not even
that makes sense. So like when you go hit refresh, you see it loading that whatever 100 or however many transactions were there. You could actually just store it at your local sequence number, store it in your cookies or in your browser or local machine, and then plug in from there. That's an interesting different model for sure that I definitely didn't consider. Like what if your application network state was maintained on your local machine, even if you're not always on the site or always using the app or different things like that is very interesting to think about. I see you have a Kabuto shirt actually. That's super cool. How do I get one of those?
I can ask about it.
Ooh, I would sign up for that pretty quickly. I would trade you. Let me see what NFTs I have. I have a spy emoji and I have a middle finger emoji as well if you want that one.
Oh, that's very special.
Has anyone actually found the poop emoji yet?
Oh, that's a great question for the crowd here. If you have found
very productive question there.
Seemingly highly valued poop emoji, we would love to trade with you for it.
I mean, it's just the most hilarious, right?
There are also 9 requests. Let me share my screen here. There are also 9 requests, it seems, for toilet paper. That is the most wanted emoji. It seems very fitting. Most traded emojis. That's pretty cool. This is one of the most fun applications I've seen built on Hedera so far. It's super interesting. Okay, this is a great comment. Thanks, Roger, for reminding me. So he had a question about how you actually create the non-fungible tokens. So on smart contracts, it's a very clear, I deploy this contract, I say this is how many tokens in the initialization parameters will exist or whatever you want to do. How can you create those on a Hedera consensus service? Like, what does that kind of spin-up process look like?
So that question is both really easy and really hard to define because
it's a broad field.
No, the answer is you don't create them. You simply don't, because we're using HCS as a means of state differentials or state deltas, right? So the actual NFTs are created locally in memory, and that's the end of it. The applications just understand that they exist, and that's it.
And that is the thing, if I may expound on that.
Yeah, please.
Oh yeah, I would love you to.
Is that the application code itself governs the issuance, if you will, of emojis. So everyone else, when someone joins the network, will calculate you have some pseudo-random function that like we developed, where everyone else on the network at the same time calculates what NFTs you actually start with. And if it's not pseudo-random, then it's issued from a constant pool that everyone's keeping track of as part of their network state when you join. And then you see, okay, well, the algorithm dictates that I get this many emojis, and everyone else on the network is like, yeah, I see that. You got that when you joined, you claimed the right to those NFTs. So that's how you would do it in kind of a distributed state application like this, is everyone has to agree that, yes, I am starting with these NFTs because reasons.
Yeah, so maybe one model. I think that there's going to be hundreds of
course,
ways that people could do different types of tokenization and NFTs on Hedera. But one could be, I want to do NFTs for solving this emoji problem. Maybe I just really love emojis. And I would publish maybe an open source repository that is, a base of code that says the rules and what the set is and how many there are, and the rules for how we'll allocate those to new users, kind of like you would in a smart contract, basically just defining the logic of this application network. And you would get people to agree, whatever your community or governance concept is, that this is the rules and tokens that you would like to mint or create or exchange, and basically just deploy that to a topic, and I'll decide this is our new application network. Kind of like if someone forks a traditional blockchain, Ethereum, whatever, you just take it, change it, and if people want to listen to it and use that new version, then they can.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly how mining works, is everyone just agrees that, yes, I got this many Bitcoins for breaking this block.
Yeah, so it's very much kind of like an analog to other types of consensus mechanisms, where you'd have a type of governance or a type of community that's deciding, this is the upgrades or improvements to those NFTs that we would have. And there's a lot of interesting things that we will not probably dive into because this is just a simple demo. But it's good to be aware that those are things that would happen. Is there anything else about the setup or initialization process of NFTs that would be worth talking about? Is there any kind of coordination or suggestions that you would have if someone wanted to do something like this?
I guess the only thing I could think of more to make sure we touch on is I would just want to make sure that whatever the, I guess, proof of getting the NFT is, it just needs to be something easily provable. Like, even if the application is when it starts up is going to check something else, like, for instance, maybe you have to, in order to get this, you have to burn some Bitcoin to a specific address. And the application is checking that, yes, you burnt that Bitcoin to that address, and that's why you have this NFT. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do this. It just has to be something that's easily agreed upon at the application computation layer, right?
So let's break this down a little bit, because I think I might know what you're talking about, but I'm sure we're losing some of the people.
Sorry, yeah.
Well, no, it's this space, like, there is so much technical complexity and like the depth is all over the place. So when you say something that's easily provable at the application level, what is that in your guys' demo?
So, like, for instance,
what are you proving and making sure?
What we're proving is for us, there isn't really a proof. It's just, you have these emojis because you have this, you initially existed in this network at this exact time. And that means
how
that
do you
have
define their existence? Is that when they sign up and when they hit
the sign up button, right? That creates what we call an announce event on HCS on that topic.
Okay.
When that event reaches consensus, we're watching it in Kabuto. When that reaches consensus, that timestamp we use that as a okay, you exist. That's your timestamp. We put that timestamp in our pseudo random function, and that's the emojis you have, and that's an airdropping system, right? Like we talked about originally. But you could do other things as well, like looking at some external source or looking somewhere else as long as everyone else is looking at the same data.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned burning tokens as that type of provable event.
Really, all I mean by that is, for
that
instance,
it's easily provable.
Yeah, like there is a specific, like, if you make a trade to this Bitcoin address, and this application is coded to look at this Bitcoin address, you make a trade more than this Bitcoin to this address, and let's say you attach a memo or a data of your whatever, now this application gets this NFT. Like, you can combine it that way.
Yeah, like if we were talking purely for Hedera, it would be you send a crypto transfer transaction at maybe from the account ID you're going to be using to submit to the topic with your public key that you're going to announce in the exchange. And then other clients would go look for that transfer transaction from your account and see, yes, they did commit so many H bars to whatever maybe the common fund or the pot or whatever your community, however your community works. And they can see, yes, they bought in, now we issue them NFTs. And
that's super interesting. I never really thought about it that way, where because you guys have this type of like logic where you're enforcing those public and private keys and their signatures at the HCS message level and at the like application level.
Yeah.
I never really thought about the fact that you could maybe do a stake-based deposit into a topic. And that stake-based deposit is actually what authenticates you to be able to write to that topic.
Yeah, it could be as simple as you contributing to the account that's auto-renewing the topic so that to make sure the topic remains secure.
Yeah, it's like we expect an individual to cost 10 H bar to use this topic for the next year. If you want to use it, you're gonna have to send us 10 H bar before you're able to use it. That's super, super interesting. So Roger asked again, is there a semi-official spec for NFTs? It allows for trading on platforms on OpenSea. Is there a way to create NFTs that can be openly traded on the Hedera network? So I don't believe Hedera is going to put out a specification for something like non-fungible tokens. It is a very, very broad research field. It's super interesting, super exciting. And there's a lot of different things that you would want to do. If you are interested in standards or specifications, I would really recommend you look at the Token Taxonomy initiative that defines these really, really nice specifications for different types of tokens and how those can be implemented across blockchains or distributed ledgers. So whether you're building on Hedera, Hyperledger Fabric, or Ethereum, the Token Taxonomy initiative really does a great job making sure that you have clearly defined specifications and components of this network. Super, super good question. And so I guess the second part of that would be, is there a way to create NFTs that can be openly traded on the Hedera network? I believe that is the demo application that they've been showing us here. This is NFTs openly traded on Hedera. You can go to that website right now and trade me some NFTs. Ryan, do you want to maybe just walk through a couple like seconds or a couple minutes of trading here to?
Yeah, we can do a couple more trades here. Yeah.
That's no worries.
Let me hit share screen again. Oh, I hit the refresh. I hit the refresh button. It took like a minute. People are really trading.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, please go to this URL that is in the chat and create an account, try to trade people some tokens.
Yeah. So when you start out here, you'll get your emoji up here. You can hit trade, and it's going to show you a list of users. I'm going to scroll through here, and here's Austin. I'm going to click on trade with Austin. Let's give him 500 credits, and whatever this is. Like my eyes can't see that. For that sounds fun.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
You hit trade, it goes la 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 la. It's creating an event and then waiting for it to come back. And okay, now I can see it existing.
That's a motorized wheelchair.
That's pretty cool. You're gonna want one of those.
I'm gonna want the only one of those so that no one else can have it.
Yeah, and then here is got this person Chris T sending me a motorbike. Oh, that's for a monkey. I'll take that.
That's woman in motorized wheelchair. Nice.
Oh, okay.
For a magic 8-ball and 500
There we go.
credits.
And so to kind
Why
of go full circle, you know, I feel
Yeah.
free to keep walking and doing trades. But to answer Roger's question more specifically, like if this was an application that had a wide enough usage, a wide enough community, and for some reason people wanted to exchange these emojis on a secondary market, just like they would if it's an NFT that represents a crypto kitty, for instance. It would just be up to the market to determine the value of these NFTs. If you could go to an exchange and convince them to integrate with this Hedera consensus service topic and say, hey, this is how it works. This is what the rules are. This is the model that we're working with. You could actually trade these emojis just like you would CryptoKitties or other types of NFTs that are out there. It's just, what is the integration point and things like that. So hopefully it's clear that this is just, emojis as the example of an NFT because they're fun and cute and there's only so many of them. But you could actually do like baseball cards, CryptoKitties.
Something valuable, yeah.
Yeah, the idea is anything that's actually scarce in the real world, you could, or in the digital world, you could represent with cryptographic scarcity. And therefore trade it and create digital value.
And then you could have some jokester here try and trade me 1 credit for a bunch of emojis. Not gonna do that, man.
Ooh, cowardly samurai. That was not a good trade. You're gonna have to update your trading. That was probably a bot actually. I'm waiting till they have bots front running these trades.
Nice.
Oh, we offered you 2 now. That's a little bit better.
For 1 emoji, not for 7.
Hey, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, there you go.
So something you would also want to consider for implementing NFTs in production would be like you'd want a central issuer possibly for NFTs that represent real property, a central issuer that maintains records of that ownership and actually generates and or already possesses the NFT and then transfers it to you as on your initial introduction into the network.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So if you were trying to bridge the physical world with the digital world and have NFTs that represent physical scarcity, you likely need, one party, a group of parties, whoever it is, a consortium, to take those things off chain and bring them on chain and give them the kind of authenticity that they would require to validate their digital existence, I guess. For instance, if someone was trying to tokenize real estate, you would actually need whoever owns those real estate deeds or the legally binding contracts behind them to help bridge that gap between physical and digital.
And in that case, you would just have a simple event saying, I am creating this NFT with maybe a UUID or something like that, or a hash that references an actual property that's owned by that issuer. And
yeah, you can hash the actual land deed or something like that.
And then you can even follow the provenance of that property all the way back to the initial issuer to verify that it's valid. Or you would look up the initial issuer by following the provenance, and then you would ask the issuer themselves, hey, did you issue UUID such and such to this account? And then they would say, yes, that is a valid property that we own or that we control, that we consider owned by whoever owns that NFT now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you just touched on one thing that I would love to dive into. If I was a real estate property owner, right, and I wanted to be able to authenticate and track all of my properties on Hadera, maybe provide that information to the government, provide it to auditing firms, the IRS, but I didn't want the rest of the world to see that. What is there a privacy model here? In other public networks, unless you're doing something like zero knowledge proofs, there is really no way that you're going to be able to have any type of privacy within these transactions. Could you maybe talk about how a consortium or business could stand up a private version of this trading engine?
Yeah, so certainly you could represent your NFTs as something inherently anonymous, like a hash or maybe even an HMAC that the issuer is signed, and then that's the token that they publish. Or if the issuer wants to remain, if the issuer is okay being public, then they would have some sort of like signature that would be the DFA that they trade.
So like actually a good example of that really quick, just to step in there. A good example of that is if we just removed the names here, you would have no idea what we're trading. And you would have, if we just removed the name emoji and gold from our trade request object that's going to Hedera, you would have to have a copy of this application to understand what we're trading. Right?
That makes sense.
Close to anonymous here.
And if you really wanted to, you could encrypt that entire message body
as well, yeah.
And only share the keys with the people who are permissioned to actually submit to the network. And you would also maintain control of the submit key, or you would use like a key list with a like a threshold key with a threshold of 1, and then just add a bunch of keys to that threshold key and distribute those out. And
okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if I wanted to, I could require you to actually run the application level code to see the messages themselves. Like just going to Kabuto wouldn't show me who's trading what.
It'd just be a mess.
Gibberish, yeah. But it is decryptable, or not, it's not encrypted, but it's viewable by anyone who's running a version of that client software. Which totally makes sense, right? Like if I don't want everyone in the world to care about these transactions, but those with a vested enough interest to be running the application might want it, is an interesting model. But I think you touched on what's taking that a step further, which is using admin and submit keys to limiting access to who can actually write to that topic, and then further encrypting all of the information within that topic between those relevant parties. So if me and Ryan and Austin here wanted to create a private stock market, I could create a new consensus service topic, and I could define a threshold between all of us. Any 3 of our keys would be able to write to it. And then we could also do a type of encryption between all 3 of us, where only us 3 have the ability to decrypt those message bodies.
Yeah, you could do, symmetric cryptography like AES, where you have a single shared key for the entire network. Or you could even use, if you're using a asymmetric crypto system like RSA or X25519, you can even make it so that only you and the other party actually understand what is actually going on with the transaction. Now that does eliminate the shared ledger potential, however.
Yeah, I think
you could
conversation.
Yeah.
I think that the conversation there would be like, how shared would the ledger be between those encrypted parties? Like if it's just me and my friends, that's a cool model. If it's me and 20 other businesses in a consortium, you have a very different kind of trust model there, where you actually have this like private permission chain or ledger or application network, which is super interesting because that's one of the key things that I hear when I talk to people about the Hedera consensus service. I hear people saying this solves a lot of our privacy and control concerns, especially from large enterprises. That model where they can control access and content permissioning and even readability, but still have the benefits of Hedera's security and performance, real-time auditability, and transparency, seems to be what people are very, very excited about in the market. So this is all super, super cool. I wonder if anyone has any other questions. If you have questions, please let us know in the chat. You do have us for a little bit here. We'll stick around.
I just want to say to thank you, Launchpad, for doing an awesome job on this. My team.
Great job, team.
Yeah, the app has stood up to a lot of consecutive trading right now for the last hour. So good job.
Oh yeah, this has been performing wonderfully, and with live demos, you never know what's going to happen. And I think you guys actually just built this trading platform kind of for this live stream or as a proof of concept.
Yeah.
So super cool that it's looks super nice, actually works, and has been highly performant through a live stream that's getting a lot of activity. This is super, super cool.
You can go on here and hit all trades and just scroll for a while. Kind of fun.
Yeah, big shout out to the entire Launchpad team. If you're familiar with Kabuto or these other projects, you probably know them. Oh. Or if you're ever in our GitHub or our GitHub issues, you probably see them there as well.
I should step in and be clear that I wasn't saying thank you to myself there. We have a team of like, how many do we have now? 10 people here?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think I just realized that you guys are in the same room.
Actually, no.
It's the same building though.
I'm the next room over, actually. Right through that wall.
That's great.
No, yes, I mean, we have a smallish team, but it's not just us. I didn't just say thank you to myself on the camera there.
It's good to clarify.
Yeah.
You guys are great. That's awesome. Is there anything else with this demo chat application, or not chat application? You can see I've been building a demo chat application with this trading application that you would like to touch on here while we still have you.
I mean, I think it's mostly a demonstration of the potential of HCS to actually move the burden of something like smart contracts out of Hedera itself and into the clients that are actually using it, which would both improve throughput and latency as well as responsiveness. Well, I guess for latency and responsiveness are basically the same thing, but improving feedback where you're not working with a smart contract in a black box like the Solidity VM, where you only get logs in and out. This is JavaScript in the browser. You can hook up a debugger, pull up the Chrome DevTools, see what's going on in real time. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think it's so cool how you guys kind of chose this JavaScript browser implementation for your guys' application network. This actually might be a good point to talk about, how that's just one design decision. There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, down the road. And I think one other one that you're thinking about or working on right now is the Corda demo. Do you maybe want to talk about that, or if not that, any other cool things that you guys are working on while we have you for a few more minutes?
I mean, I can discuss it briefly. I don't know if you want me to go into the context of what Corda is.
No, I don't think we need that, but maybe talk about the differences on, the design decisions for something using HCS with Corda versus this type of browser validation or processing model, or wherever you think is a good contrasting point
really
between.
The difference there is just Corda is more of it's more there for financial systems. And so if you're using Corda and you want to take advantage of what HCS can do, that's kind of where we're working towards there with Corda and HCS.
Yeah, and as far as comparing and contrasting, Corda, it's a giant enterprise product. You have nodes that you have to spin up for yourself to actually run your private Corda network, even before you even think about having clients connect to this. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it does come with a large library of smart contracts for handling stuff like cash transactions that you would have to build yourself if you were building directly on HCS. So it's a trade-off. You get more, if you were building directly on HCS like we did with Trading Post, you have direct control over the stack. HCS is just a building block there.
I love Ryan debating if he should accept this trade or not. He's literally like, oh, it's 4 for 4. Which ones do I like more?
I don't know. I kind of like his motor back. I'm going to have to say no. Sorry.
Whoever that was, we apologize. But that makes a lot of sense. So my understanding is like you guys are deploying an application network for these NFTs. You guys are saying, I want to process these in the browser, on the browser, whoever wants to run them. Other people, if they're a large bank, a large consortium, could say, I want to run these in Corda or something else like Fabric. And really Trade-off would be, like you said, there is a larger infrastructure like deployment process and maintenance process with a whole Corda network versus just a browser kind of application.
With
But
Corda, you're talking about a significant buy-in.
Yeah, but there are
Really?
so many cool things about Corda. Like I believe that they have like native firewalls like built into it and really nice like configuration management.
Yeah, like the privacy and the visibility control is all part of the Corda architecture.
Yep. So if you want to, if you're looking at this and you're like, I love the idea of doing NFTs, I love Hedera's technology, but I'm using Corda, or I like Corda, or I'm using Fabric, I like Fabric, or really anything else there. Like these guys did it in a browser. I think like the key takeaway is that this is just one of what will become a lot of deployment options that have their own, pros and cons that will should be evaluated depending on your use case.
Yeah, you could host the actual application logic on like an application server that a few trusted parties have, and then you just have clients connect to it via a basic REST API or some sort of API like that, and put a nice UI on it, so that you can be sure that you don't necessarily have malicious actors directly talking to the topic and messing with your protocol, but you still can still build on the trust that HCS provides and trickle that trust down to the actual end user application.
This is super, super cool. And I would definitely recommend, if you are trying to build on the Hedera consensus service, please look into Kabuto. Please look into like their gRPC API for these subscriptions, but they also have historical data and on all those other cool things that you would need. They also have their browser explorer where you can link to both testnet and mainnet. Supports all the different types of transactions and things you might need to do on the network. So if you're looking for an API provider, a network explorer, or just people to ask questions about what you should do, I would highly encourage you to reach out and look into Kabuto. Is there anything else that you guys would like to chat about while we have you here?
Not unless there's questions. No, I think we're pretty good.
I think we answered most of the questions. I would just ask, what's the easiest way that someone could get a hold of you guys or ask you questions to learn more about this demo application, launch badge if they want to hire or work with you, or Kabuto as a Hedera mirror node?
Honestly, I'm just going to point people towards launchbadge.com for right now. That's probably the easiest for like sales type questions. We have a form on there. Getting a hold of me is probably the easiest on Discord.
Okay.
But I also ignore that a lot. But
yeah, you guys are always. I see you everywhere. I see you guys in Slack. I see you in Discord. I see you in GitHub. I see you across the board. So if you're not in the Hedera community yet, feel free to say hi to these guys if you see them around, and definitely feel free to ask any of us questions. I think that is it for today's virtual meetup. If you do have questions, let us know. Get in touch with Launchbadge. Reach out to us on Discord. We're always available and happy to help you build really game-changing applications like this NFT demo hopefully kind of shows you what is possible with Hedera. So again, thank you so much to Ryan and Austin from the Launchbadge team. You guys are awesome members of our community, and thank you so much for your time here today.
No, thank you, man. Thank you for having us. It's a lot of fun.
An absolute pleasure.